In every family, there's an unspoken role you're expected to play. I was the quiet one. Not rebellious. Not demanding. Not gifted in some loud, showy way. Just quiet. And they liked it that way, because the quiet made it easy to forget. I'm the youngest of three. My older sister, Tara, was the golden child, academic star, student council president, and full ride to a name-brand university. My older brother, Jason, was the rough one. The project, the one everyone worried about but still rooted for. And me? I was the kid who did his homework without being asked, who cleaned his room, who never asked for more than what was offered, which wasn't much. Growing up, I noticed things. The way my dad's face lit up when Jason hit a baseball. The way my mom would beam when Tara talked about her latest award. I got polite smiles. A distracted good job now and then. And when Tara and Jason went off to college, my parents dropped everything to support them. Paid tuition, bought cars, covered apartments. Meanwhile, I took out loans and worked 2 jobs to pay rent and tuition at a state school. When I asked for help once, just once, my dad said, "You're the independent one. You'll figure it out." And I did. Not because I wanted to, because I had no choice. Over time, I got used to it. Used to being the backup plan, the afterthought, the one who handled things on his own. After college, I landed a job at a mid-sized logistics firm. Nothing flashy, but steady. I worked hard, got promoted, moved into management by 28, paid off my loans early. Meanwhile, Tara burned out and switched careers twice. Jason bounced between failed startups, each new idea more ridiculous than the last. Still, my parents floated them. Rent payments, health insurance, cash loans that never got repaid. Every time I visited, I saw new gifts in their houses. A couch here, a new fridge. Jason even had a motorcycle for a while. A reward, my mom called it. For what? I never understood. I never brought it up. What would be the point? They'd just say I was being dramatic, that they loved all their kids equally. So I stayed quiet. Until the day I came over and found them mid-conversation about a small investment they'd made in Jason's latest venture. An investment that was not small. My dad said it offhandedly. We gave him $60,000 to help get the licensing secured. That's nothing compared to what it could bring in. $60,000. I sat there, across the table from them, sipping coffee I brought myself, nodding like that was normal. Like it wasn't more than I'd made in a year at my first full-time job. Like I hadn't just spent the last 6 years scrubbing my credit clean and saving for my first house while they dropped tens of thousands on a son who couldn't hold a job for more than a year. That was the moment something broke. Not a dramatic collapse. Not tears. Just this cold, clear realization. They were never going to see me. Not unless I made them. So I started watching, asking quiet questions. And eventually, I uncovered a secret they never meant for me to find. A betrayal hidden behind signatures and silence. And once I found it, I didn't explode. I exposed. I didn't confront them that day. What would have been the point? My parents had perfected a kind of polite dismissal. If I questioned anything, they'd say I misunderstood, or I was being ungrateful, or bitter. So instead, I did something I'd never done before. I started pulling threads. It began with curiosity, just trying to understand where all this money had come from. They weren't wealthy people. My dad worked in insurance for most of his life. My mom had done part-time admin work since we were kids. They weren't broke, but $60,000 wasn't casual cash. Especially not after what they'd told me during college. We don't have a college fund. We're just trying to keep the lights on. That line had followed me for years, even when I worked through finals on 2 hours of sleep just to avoid overdraft fees. And now, suddenly, they had tens of thousands to spare? I started small. Asked my sister, Tara, about the support she got in college. She didn't hesitate. They paid everything. Tuition, books, housing. I thought you knew. They said they couldn't afford it for me. She looked confused. That doesn't make sense. They set up the 529 plans for all 3 of us. What 529 plans? That's when something clicked. I requested my credit report, looked for any accounts, co-signatures, or odd activity tied to my name. Clean. Then I requested a financial disclosure from the college I attended, just to confirm what financial aid records existed under my student profile. They listed my FAFSA reports and a line I didn't recognize. A parental asset acknowledgement, signed and submitted the year before I started school. I compared the numbers. They had money. They just didn't report it when I asked them if any help was available. I dug deeper. My mom once mentioned they had a trust set up through a relative. An old aunt who passed years ago and left a little something for the grandkids. She'd told me, vaguely, it wasn't much. But that same aunt had adored me. She used to send birthday cards with $50 tucked inside and notes about how you've always been so kind to me. So I called the firm listed on her estate. I wasn't expecting much, but they confirmed it. The trust had been split 3 ways. Tara received hers at 18. Jason got his at 21. Mine? Unclaimed. I stared at the phone in silence. What does that mean? It means someone authorized a delay. Legally, it's still there. But it's locked unless the original trustees release it. Who are the trustees? Your parents. So there it was. They hadn't just favored my siblings. They'd actively withheld what was mine, lied about it, buried it, and built a narrative where I was independent by choice. All while cashing in every time Jason wanted to start a new business. I didn't get angry. I got methodical. I compiled everything. Documents, emails, screenshots. Even Tara agreed to write a statement confirming what they'd paid for. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about the erasure. They didn't forget me. They chose not to see me. I set up a meeting, told them I was dropping by, brought everything in a sealed folder. And when I sat down at their kitchen table, the same table where they once told me they were proud of how little I needed from them, I placed the folder between us. My dad looked at it. What's this? A reminder. Of what? What you kept from me. And what comes next? My dad flipped through the folder slowly. He didn't speak for the first 5 minutes. Just scanned the documents, frowned, and flipped another page. Bank statements, trust documentation, email excerpts, a notarized copy of the parental authorization to delay my fund access. It was all there. My mother sat across from me, holding her mug like a lifeline. Finally, she asked, "Why are you bringing this up now?" Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "Let's talk about it." Just an accusation, cloaked in confusion. Hey guys, please don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment if you have any feedback. Let's go to the story. I looked at her. Because you've spent over a decade pretending I didn't notice. My dad set the folder down. You've always been the independent one. You didn't need the help. That's not your decision to make. It was our money. That wasn't. The trust wasn't yours. We managed it. You withheld it. He shook his head, not out of denial, but out of something worse. Annoyance. What do you want exactly? Money? An apology? I want the truth. And I want access to what's mine. My mom tried a softer approach. You're doing well now. You've built a life. Why stir all this up? Because you wrote a story where I was the one who asked for nothing. And I'm tired of being quiet, so you could feel better about it. She looked away. They didn't yell. They didn't beg. They just deflated. Because they knew I wasn't asking. I was informing. I told them plainly. They had 2 options. Release the trust and send confirmation in writing by the end of the month. Or I'd open a legal claim and let a court sort it out. You'd see your parents? My dad asked. I'd hold people accountable. If that happens to be you, then yes. The rest of the visit was short. No one hugged goodbye. No one said we love you. I didn't expect them to. Because this was never about emotion. It was about extraction. They didn't help Jason out of love. They helped because they liked having him close, dependent. Tara, they admired. Jason, they enabled. Me? I was useful until I stopped being silent. A week later, I got an email. Attached. Confirmation that the trust would be released, no strings attached. No apology in the message. No comment. Just the paperwork. I replied with a single sentence. I'll handle the rest through my attorney. The next time I saw Jason, he didn't mention it directly, but he was colder, more distant. I could tell my parents had told him something. Probably some version of me being ungrateful or greedy. Let them have their version. Because I had the documents. And I had peace. In the months that followed, I did what they never expected. I didn't blow the money. I didn't rub it in. I used it to invest in a business, mine. I hired people like me. Overlooked, underestimated, always expected to figure it out. And together, we built something real. One day, Tara called. I heard what happened. From them. Sort of. They're playing it like you went rogue. I went honest. She paused, then said, I'm glad you did. They did the same thing to me in a different way. Just quieter. I was the showpiece. But you? You were the one they leaned on while pretending not to. That stayed with me. Because for the first time, I realized I hadn't been invisible. I'd been useful. And now that I wasn't, they didn't know what to do with me. The business took off faster than I expected. We started with 3 clients. Within a year, we had 15. I hired a team, leased office space, landed a regional contract that put us on the map. For the first time in my life, I wasn't surviving. I was thriving. And I wasn't doing it quietly anymore. An industry publication did a feature on our company, a profile piece highlighting small business owners building success from scratch. They included a photo of me in the office, smiling, mid-laugh. The headline read, "Resilience, not handouts. Building when no one builds with you." I hadn't picked that title, but it was accurate. 3 days after the article was published, my mother called. Not texted. Called. I let it go to voicemail. She left a message. "We saw the article. Your dad said it was impressive. Maybe we could meet up. Just to talk. We don't have to rehash everything." That's when I realized. They only reached out when my value reappeared, when it was public, undeniable, and useful again. I didn't call back. A week later, Jason texted. No greeting. Just, "Nice piece. You still mad?" I stared at it. The man who took more money from our parents than anyone, who watched me drown in student debt while they covered his rent, now wanted to joke like nothing happened. I didn't reply. Not because I was angry. Because I had outgrown the dynamic where I needed him to understand. Tara reached out too. But she wasn't looking to reconnect the old way. "They're rewriting everything," she said. "Telling people they supported you. That they always knew you'd do something great. Sounds about right. What do you want to do?" "Nothing," I said. "Let them talk. Their version won't change mine." And that was the difference now. I didn't need validation. I didn't need revenge. I had something they never gave me. A name I could stand behind, and a life I didn't have to apologize for. Months passed. I got an invitation to a family gathering, my parents' anniversary party. Printed. Formal. No handwritten note. No personal message. Just my name, like I was a guest. I set it on my desk. Looked at it for a long time. Then wrote one line in pen and mailed it back. "I'll always wish you well. But I don't go where I'm only invited out of convenience." They didn't reply. And I didn't expect them to. Because they still didn't understand what had changed. They thought I'd become arrogant. Selfish. Cold. But the truth? I just finally learned to stop negotiating for basic dignity. I wasn't punishing them. I wasn't angry. I was simply unavailable for the version of family they built on imbalance. And that wasn't a loss. It was liberation. The letter came in early spring. My name on the envelope, written in careful, deliberate pen. Inside, my father's handwriting, neat, stiff, strangely emotional. It began with a sentence I'd never heard from him in my entire life. "I was wrong. Not about anything specific, just wrong." He continued. "You were always the one we didn't worry about. The one we didn't check on because you never gave us a reason. We saw that as a strength. But it wasn't fair. You deserved more than quiet respect." I paused there. Let the words settle. Because, as measured as they were, they came from a man who had spent a lifetime withholding them. He wrote about my childhood. How I never asked for much. How I seemed fine. He now realized that just because someone seems fine doesn't mean they are. It was more vulnerability than I'd ever seen from him. But it wasn't just a letter of reflection. The second half shifted into something else. I've been revisiting the estate. There's work to be done. Upkeep. Restructuring. I don't trust your brother to handle it. Tara's got her own family now. But you. You're steady. You do it right. There it was. The responsibility. The expectation. The weight. All over again. Even in his apology, I was the one being asked to fix things. To organize. To be the adult. To clean up what they never learned to manage themselves. And worse? Part of me wanted to say yes. Because for a moment, just a second, I thought maybe this was it. The recognition. The turning point. But it wasn't. Because he didn't say, "You've done enough." He said, "You can handle more." I showed the letter to Tara. She read it carefully, then looked up. "They don't get it. They think this is love," I said. "No," she said. "They think this is the only thing they can offer now, responsibility. Not affection. Just function." She was right. I thought about the years I spent grinding through debt, waiting tables during finals, waking up in cold apartments, wondering if my card would get declined again, while they paid for Jason's ideas and Tara's first condo. And now they wanted me to manage their legacy. A legacy I was never allowed to inherit in the first place. I wrote back, carefully, "I accept your apology, but I won't carry the legacy that never carried me. I have my own now. Simple. Final. Not cruel. Just true." It took me days to send it. Not because I doubted myself. Because grief lingers longest in the spaces where hope used to live. And I think a part of me, the child version, at least, still wanted him to say, "You don't have to carry it anymore." But that version of him didn't exist. So I stopped waiting. My father passed away 5 months after the letter. It wasn't sudden. Tara had hinted at it in a few texts that he was slowing down, in and out of the hospital, not talking much anymore. I never visited, not because I was angry, because I didn't want to make peace with a man who only started speaking honestly at the end of the story. The funeral was small, reserved, controlled. I didn't attend. I sent flowers. A simple note attached. In memory of who we tried to be. No signature. Later that week, a letter arrived from their attorney. Inside, a final copy of the will, a summary of the estate breakdown, and a short note attached in my mother's handwriting. We hope this offers a small step toward healing. Attached to the will was a check, my portion of the inheritance. It wasn't much. Jason had already received a larger amount years earlier, according to the documents. This was more like a gesture. I read through the breakdown 3 times, not because I wanted more, but because it confirmed what I suspected all along. Even after the apology, even after acknowledging what they'd withheld, what they'd overlooked, they still couldn't fully rewrite the pattern. Tara got more. Jason got more. I got something. Just not equal. Just not quite enough. I showed it to a friend over lunch, someone who'd seen me through the thick of this journey. She asked, gently, "Are you okay?" And I surprised myself when I answered, "Yeah, I really am." Because I was. It didn't sting the way it might have years ago. Because by then, I wasn't measuring my worth by what they gave me. I had already earned more than they could have offered. I donated the check to a nonprofit that gives scholarships to students without parental support. The kind of students who work night shifts, who know what it means to open a tuition bill with a pit in their stomach. I wrote a note for the donation file, in honor of what I didn't receive, and I meant it. Weeks later, my mom called. I let it go to voicemail. She said she hoped we could talk someday. Those things were quieter now. That she was trying to remember the good parts. I didn't call back. Not out of punishment. Because we were simply living on different timelines now. She was remembering a version of the past she could live with. I was building a future that never required her permission. I left the voicemail saved, though, like a photograph of a house I no longer live in. Not because I'll return, but it reminds me how far I've walked since I left. Time passed. The kind of time that doesn't feel dramatic, just steady. Quiet mornings. Steady work. Simple dinners. And somewhere in all that softness, I stopped checking for their names in my inbox. Stopped wondering if I'd ever hear. "We're proud of you." From the voices that once refused to say it. Because eventually, I realized something simple but powerful. I wasn't waiting for their approval anymore. I had outgrown the version of myself they tried to shape. I built something different. A life without apology. A company that ran with values I never saw in our family. Fairness, transparency, shared credit. When my employees succeeded, I celebrated them publicly. When someone struggled, I asked what they needed instead of what they owed me. Because I knew what it meant to be useful but unseen. Valuable but never valued. And I refused to recreate that cycle for anyone else. Sometimes, people ask why I'm not close to my family. I don't give them the whole story. Not because I'm hiding it. Because I no longer need it to define me. I just say, they taught me what I didn't want to become. And I thank them for that. Tara and I talk occasionally. Text messages. Holiday cards. She once told me she keeps a framed quote on her desk, something I said when I turned down our parents' final offer. "I won't carry the legacy that didn't carry me." She said it reminds her that boundaries aren't just protection. They're true. "Jason, I haven't heard from you in years." I assume he's still chasing something that feels like enough. Maybe one day he'll find it. Maybe not. But I stopped making that my business a long time ago. And my mother? She still writes, now and then. Short letters. Occasionally, a birthday card. No guilt. No rewriting. Just a kind of silence between us that feels less like avoidance and more like a truce. The last time she wrote, she included a photo. I, age 9, was at the school science fair, holding a cardboard volcano. Beaming. She wrote, "We didn't know how to show up for this version of you. I hope you know we should have." And I did know, but I didn't reply. Because some stories don't need sequels. Just acknowledgments. One night, years later, I walked through my office after hours. No one there. Just the hum of machines and soft lights reflecting off glass. I passed a wall we built to showcase our team's milestones, photos, newspaper clippings, handwritten notes from clients. In the center, someone had framed that old magazine cover. Resilience, not handouts. Underneath it, in a small gold plate, it simply read, "Founded by someone who didn't wait to be chosen." And I smiled. Because that's what it had always been about. Not being chosen. Not being redeemed. Not even being right. Just being free. Sometimes they don't come back and apologize. Sometimes they rewrite the story to make your distance look like abandonment. Sometimes they only see your value after they've stopped benefiting from it. But if you keep going, if you build anyway, if you live anyway, you'll learn what I did. Being forgotten isn't the worst thing. Being seen too late isn't either. But spending your life waiting for someone else to love you properly? That's a cost I'll never pay again.